in our culture, we created this happy hour concept, and now we're all drinking after work or drinking after a long, hard day because we are craving that moment of like, okay, I want to calm down. Now we're entering the evening. So reaching for a sunset is just such a beautiful, nourishing way to do that. And it doesn't even have to be a sunset at that time. If you can find something else to do, whether it's you go for a walk, you journal, you maybe cook a meal, you're using your hands, you read your favorite book, whatever it is for you, whatever that new routine can be, is so beneficial for your nervous system and for your long-term goal of, staying alcohol free.
Welcome to the Sober Edge podcast, inspiration for alcohol-free living. I'm your host, Terry Patterson, functional nutritionist and This Naked Mind senior coach. The Sober Edge is a place to explore the infinite possibilities on the other side of drinking. In a culture soaked in booze, discover the wonder and joy of taking a different path. Meet real people living lives of purpose and passion. Learn the truth behind the alcohol myths and get ready to be motivated, inspired, and astounded by what is possible with the Sober Edge. You're listening to episode 148 of the Sober Edge podcast. This episode is going to be a conversation with my friend and colleague, Kristin Horstman. And Kristin is a gray area drinking certified coach. And that means part of her specialty is nervous system regulation and understanding how to truly nourish our nervous system so that drinking just isn't the answer any longer. And so I love this conversation because I think we often have these concepts of emotional sobriety, nervous system regulation. We talk about these lofty concepts, but I'm not sure that we do a very good job of breaking down and really describing what it is, why it's important, and exactly how to do things like regulate our nervous system. And so I have these question and answer times with Kristin during this episode, and you're going to hear some of her ideas from her background and training about how to do exactly that. So I think this is a really valuable episode, and I'm so grateful to Kristin for sharing her expertise. I want to read her bio, and then I also want to tell you a little bit about her connection to a nonprofit called CMC Foundation for Change that is very exciting for those of us that are looking for support for our loved ones. Kristin tells us in this episode that over 50% of families are supporting a loved one who is caught up in substance use. And so I want to also share some information about them. So first of all, let me share the following about Kristin. So Kristin Horstman is a certified gray area drinking master coach, health coach, speaker, and blogger with over 2 decades of experience in diverse leadership roles. Beginning her journey to sobriety in January 2021, under the mentorship of Jolene Park, Kristin has overcome personal battles with alcohol and anxiety. She passionately guides others through similar struggles, embodying the mantra, "For years I drank alcohol in the gray area, but my forever decision to stop is very black and white." Through her Brighten Your Life coaching program, she empowers clients to develop a positive mindset and healthier habits. Her holistic approach focuses on overall well-being, addressing gut health, neurotransmitters, and physiology to manage stress and cravings. Kristin is more than a coach. She's an understanding ally dedicated to steering clients toward a healthier, brighter future. And also to share a little bit about the nonprofit Foundation for Change. So this nonprofit supports family members of those struggling with substances, and their mission statement is as follows. CMC Foundation for Change is dedicated to providing evidence-based tools for change to everyone who cares about a person struggling with substance use. We have taken the best science has to offer and translated it into a practical, compassionate, and accessible approach for helping called the Invitation to Change. Through training, support groups, and community infrastructure building, we use the Invitation to Change to help family, friends, treatment providers, and community leaders have an impact on the terrible toll taken by substance use. And so Kristin is also a level 1 certified Invitation to Change coach, And I love that we have this conversation because you're going to hear that touches on a personal journey within my own family. And I think it's so important to have these conversations, to bring addiction out of the background and into the forefront, and to understand that this is impacting so many of us. And it's absolutely critical to get help, and help is available. So I hope you enjoy this really powerful episode packed with great ideas, tips, and tactics to help you with your own nervous system regulation. And also, again, that very special conversation Kristin and I have toward the end of the podcast, all about the Foundation for Change and the work of CMC. All right. Well, I'll see you over in the episode. Thanks again for listening. Well, hey, everyone. It's Terry with another episode of the Sober Edge podcast. And I'm delighted to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Kristin Horstman from Brighten Your Life Coaching. Welcome to the podcast, Kristin.
Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for having me today.
I love that. If you're listening to this, you can't see Kristin's background, but she has a background that you can choose a photo, and she has a photo of a sunset. And I love this because part of your message, Kristin, is this sunset is the new happy hour.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Sunsets are one of my favorite topics to talk about. So one of the things that, when we stopped drinking, what was important for me, what's important for my clients is to find other things that are going to nourish the nervous system, fill that gap. We took the alcohol out. So what are we doing now at happy hour? I was a happy hour girl for many, many years. That was one of my hangout spaces with my friends. So now that I took the alcohol out and I'm not going to bars at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, I want to go for a walk and I want to view a beautiful sunset and just watching the colors change throughout the evening, while the sun is changing and the way that the colors are hitting the sky and the clouds, it just lights something up in me. I get like tingly and warm and fuzzy all over, and it's almost like a game now. Like I go chase them, I go hunt them. I'm always checking my weather app to see what time is sunset tonight and where am I going to be and where can I go and find a sunset nearby. And just taking pictures of it, it just brings me so much pleasure. And I feel like sunsets are they're like fingerprints. They're never the same. There's no two sunsets that have ever been the same. And I just love them. And there's some science too behind it, actually, believe it or not. Intuitively, I've been reaching for them, but the science is, when our bodies, all day long we're outputting, we're go, 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 we're at work or we're taking care of our kids, whatever we do, from the time we wake up from, 9 to 5, we're going, 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 we're outputting. But then at night, our body, our nervous system actually wants to downshift. It wants that sense of relaxing. It wants to end the day chapter and begin the night chapter. So a lot of the times, so unfortunately in our culture, we created this happy hour concept, and now we're all drinking after work or drinking after a long, hard day because we are craving that moment of like, okay, I want to calm down. Now we're entering the evening. So reaching for a sunset is just such a beautiful, nourishing way to do that. And it doesn't even have to be a sunset at that time. If you can find something else to do, whether it's you go for a walk, you journal, you maybe cook a meal, you're using your hands, you read your favorite book, whatever it is for you, whatever that new routine can be, is so beneficial for your nervous system and for your long-term goal of, staying alcohol free.
Oh, that's so good. And you bring up a couple of things. I always talk to my clients about, it's important to have that transitional moment because, as you say, it's really powerful to allow that this is a switch off or we're lowering down the level of activity. And alcohol is sort of that easy button, but I love the idea of having a new ritual. And I think the ritual of chasing sunsets is pretty amazing. So the name Brighten Your Life Coaching, does that have to also to do with sunsets, or does that sort of have another connotation?
It has another connotation, but it definitely aligns for sure. One of the things that I came up with when I was starting my coaching business was if you're sick of letting alcohol dim your light, then together we can brighten your life so that you can self-regulate your own nervous system, live an alcohol-free lifestyle, and elevate your life instead of escaping it. One of the things that I've realized along this whole journey of mine for the past 3.5 years is alcohol was most certainly dimming my light. And it's interesting too. And, once I took it out, I actually started to realize, well, there are other things that were dimming my light, perfectionism, people pleasing, letting other people's maybe projections bring me down. If I was, let's say I was interacting with someone and they, I felt like they attacked me. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, this person is making a scene and having this crazy moment. And now I'm dysregulated because I'm like, whoa, like what just happened here? I've had that. I have allowed people's behavior to bring down my light. I might walk into a room feeling great, awesome, and happy, and then an interaction goes sideways and out of nowhere, and it dims me. So there's a lot of layers to the whole like dimming the light. But before, when I was still drinking, I wasn't paying attention to any of that. And so that's one of the beautiful things about taking the alcohol out, is that it has allowed all this space for me to really grow and work on all these things that I wasn't even aware of. Maybe behaviors I was doing, or maybe, like I said, allowing things to bring me down, and something could ruin an entire day or entire week. And now with my nervous system regulation, all the skills I've learned, and just now I can bounce back from stressful events faster, or I can recognize that, oh, this person who is coming at me, they're projecting. That has nothing to do with me. There's something going on with them, and I don't have to take it personally, and I don't have to let it now ruin my whole day.
Yeah, yeah. And we're going to talk about nervous system regulation, but I want to circle back for a moment and just highlight that little tagline that you say, elevate your life rather than escape your life. And I think that's so powerful because we've probably all heard the saying, which I actually love, is, you know, create or design a life you don't want to escape from. But the question is how. And what you share there is the idea of elevating our life. And I think that opens up a whole new wonder and curiosity based idea for our brains to latch onto. So well done. I think it's a very powerful reframe. Let's talk a little bit about you. Trained with Jolene Park as a gray area drinking coach. And if I say this wrong, let me know, because I haven't personally gone through her programs. But I love the idea because she uses the acronym nourish. And my very first business, I started as a health coach. Most of my listeners know, and it was Nourish Your Best Self. And a little backstory is when I first thought, when I was first starting my alcohol-free coaching, I thought, well, what if I use the acronym nourish? And I have 7 weeks, and this is what we focus on. And I never did really follow up with that. I realized that one-on-one coaching is not quite that prescriptive. But I love the idea of, nourishing from the inside out. So you chose to go through her training. I went through Annie Grace's training, and I think there's some fundamental differences. So would you tell us first, Kristin, why you chose to do a coaching program that was more on the nervous system regulation, more on the body and brain?
Yes. Oh no, this is a great question. So I was a client of Jolene first. I had just enrolled myself in health coaching school. And then within a couple of weeks of enrolling, classes hadn't started yet. I had my final day one. I had my final, blackout, that whole deal. So within a couple of days of, the last time I ever drank was on January 1st, 2021. And then within that night, when I knew I was done, when I started to sober up, I was thinking back to all of these people that I had started to follow. Annie Grace was one. I love Annie Grace and her work. She's amazing. I was reading books by Laura McCowan, and then Jolene Park. I'd been watching her TED Talk and following her on Instagram. I went back and I revisited all of those, people and all the work they do. And when I was on Jolene's website, she was talking about cravings and the missing physiological pieces, and about, healing the craving brain. And I thought, oh my God, like something clicked. And I thought, that's what I'm missing, because I had finally gotten to that point where I did want to stop drinking. And I did feel like it was some kind of like force beyond me, like something beyond my control. And so everything she was saying resonated so much. So I took a chance, and within a few days, I had booked that discovery call with her. And then it was like everything changed so fast. And it was so cool because I started health coaching school. So I'm learning about coaching from the coach side. And then I'm like in the seats as a client in real time. So I had this awesome like double dose of education. And her program was so transformative and very quickly. Like things started to change so quickly that I thought, oh my God, like this is amazing. And one of the things I like to say too is she really helped me get to that point. I feel like I was so close to being done with alcohol. Like I knew I was done like that last day one, like I said, but there was still like a little bit of that fear, a little bit of that getting over that hump. And it didn't take that long for me to, like, yes, I may have drank in the gray, but my decision to stop now is very black and white. And, and then what I love about this program is that you feel better so quickly. You start doing things to repair the nervous system, repair your brain chemicals, and then you're creating these new neural pathways in your brain. So, reaching for alcohol used to be the automatic thing. So now it's like, okay, we've got the accountability from the coach. So I know that I'm going to be accountable to her. I know I'm going to meet with her weekly. I know that I'm going to be emailing her every day, because there's that accountability that the coach provides. And then actually doing something for my nervous system in place of the alcohol. You keep doing that over and over. You've created a new neural pathway in your brain, and then that becomes the automatic. And then the cravings for alcohol start to go away. That reach, that wanting, that desire, that craving, it starts to kind of tamper down, and just, and then it just, you want to reach for that sunset. I want to reach for playing with my dog. I want that experience, because we took the alcohol out, but we're still going to get stressed. We're still going to get dysregulated. So we do need something for the body to bring down that dysregulation. So having these skills it's just been a wonderful thing. And I just saw firsthand how effective the program was. And one thing that I like to say too, and I made a little video about this, is it actually, believe it or not, it gets easier. I was on a discovery call with someone recently, and they were like, does this ever get easier? And I thought, oh my gosh, I get it. I get it, because, it took me years to get to this point, where I could stop drinking, and not just stop drinking, but to, not have to suffer through the cravings anymore. And it's like, yes, it does actually get easier. In week one, when I'm first working with a client, and I remember this, when I was a client too, like everything is you're really on edge, and your body just is discombobulated, and you took the alcohol out, but now you need something else, because the body is going to send you those signals like, hey, every time we're stressed, we usually reach for alcohol. You're not giving me alcohol anymore. And this applies to like sugar, for example. Like we just suddenly start drinking or eating sugar. Our body's like sending us that chemical releasing, hey, get me some sugar, or we like sugar for comfort. Where is it? And I'm going to keep sending you painful signals until you give me that thing, because I want to feel better. Our animal brain, our nervous system, and the animal brain is the oldest part of our nervous system. It just wants to feel better.
Yeah. And that craving brain sounds familiar. I think there's a book by Judd Brewer about the craving brain.
I
And
like it.
so, yeah. And so, I also have trained as a nutritionist, and then I work with clients about regulating the nervous system. Why do you think it's so powerful to do it around habits? Because, there's also the way that I layer in my approach for coaching is, we work on kind of like behavior is last. So we have to work on the underlying reasons that we're drinking. Some of those are thoughts, some of those are habits, some of that is physiology, and then we can change our behavior. And sometimes that happens simultaneously, but in my experience, it's hard to get a lasting change if we don't work on those underlying things that continue to create those cravings, those triggers. So, in your experience with the nervous system regulation, like what is that like I'm sort of curious because I'm not sure that my listeners really understand. How do they recognize where it's a nervous system regulation issue versus like a habit or a thought about drinking?
So, it's interesting. The nervous system, so we've got these nerves in our body, and we've got, there's something called polyvagal theory. And polyvagal theory, it means poly means many, and then we've got vagal is wandering nerves. And we've got these nerves that are connecting from, the cranial up here where our cranial is behind our neck, and they go throughout the body, the pelvis, the gut. And a lot of us have heard about this gut brain connection. So the polyvagal theory talks about the fact that, yes, we have this highway in our body and we have this communication system. Well, 80% of that communication is coming from the gut, and it's going up. So it starts in the gut, starts in the body with sensations, and then it travels up the spinal cord and then talks to our brain. So that's 80% of the equation, whereas only 20% is coming from our prefrontal cortex, the mind, the conceptual, the logical part of our brain down. So the problem with only focusing on the cognitive approach is that's only 20% of the equation. We're leaving 80% then on the table. And don't get me wrong, that 20% is super valuable. I want to do it all. We want the comprehensive approach. We want to get all 100%. And that's why I think that the nervous system regulation is so powerful, and using the body, because that focuses on that 80% of that communication. And when we start with all of our story and conceptual story, that's last. That story started because of originally a sensation in the body. Was there clenching? Was there tightness? Was there temperature change? Did your heart start racing? Did you catch your breath? So all these things. So it's always a sensation, and the body is here and now. Conceptual is, either, in the past or the future. But the body, it's always scanning, it's always looking for threats, and it needs to know if we're safe. So it has to start with the body, because the body is in the present moment. And then that goes up so like I said, goes up the spinal cord, goes up to the brain. We can change our state, and then we can change before we get to the story. One of the things that I think this quote's from Viktor Frankl. He's got the man's search for meaning. There's, stimulus and response, and then there's freedom that lies in the middle. So if we can recognize what's going on in our body, if we get a sensation, if something happens and we tense up, and if we recognize that, then we can prevent just doing like an automatic response, or just going into an emotional state just automatically. Now I have more control over, I can regulate my emotions because I recognize what's happening in my body. So if something starts clenching, I notice it's happening, and then I think, oh, okay, I feel dysregulated right now. That thing in my environment, whatever just happened, dysregulated me. I'm dysregulated. It's okay to be dysregulated. That's being human. That's totally normal. But how do I want to react? So I want to be like, okay, I'm going to breathe right now. I am going to go pet the dog for a minute and let my body, calm down. I'm going to shake out, feel like literally physically shake out some of that nervous dysregulated energy, and get it physically out of my body before I react and say something. So it's more of I have control over my emotions. I can regulate them. And then I don't really say things that I regret anymore, because it's not just like I'm not as knee jerky. That is one thing that I do like to tell, like I share a lot over the past couple of years. I used to be a lot more, maybe like I would get upset, and then I would say maybe something snarky, and then later I'd be like, oh, that wasn't very nice, or, that wasn't a good thing to say. So I'm not, all of my reactions now, it's because I regulated myself first, and I have chosen that reaction. The reaction, it didn't just come out of me automatically.
Yeah, I love that. I often describe it as, when you're looking at a cartoon and there's a thought bubble.
Yeah.
Now I have a thought bubble, and I get to decide, is that kind? Should I say that? Is that necessary? And oh gosh, probably 70% of the time, the thing I was just going to blurt out I'm able to sort of dial it back. And so all of this nervous system regulation for people when they are starting to move away from alcohol, it takes awareness to start to be in your body, because what I often describe myself as like mostly in my head. Like I'm finally starting in these last few years and certainly becoming alcohol free and doing a lot of personal growth, becoming a coach, a nutritionist, learning about these systems has really helped me recognize these places where my body is responding and ask questions. But for the average person, it might feel, I know we used to do this in the Annie Grace program, the path that I would coach in. We would get to a place where we talked about your affect, your physical affect. And for many people, we would say, well, where do you feel that in their body? And they're so unaware or detached from their brain and body sensation. So what is one of the easiest ways for people to start this work of bringing some awareness to, oh, I am having a sensation in my body that is trying to give me information?
Yes. So one thing that we like to say, this was in Jolene's training, and she learned this from Bessel van der Kolk, who the body keeps the score. He talks about, what do you notice? Because a lot of the times, if we say how you're feeling, a lot of the times people can't really verbalize that. They don't really know. So if you can say, what do you notice? So this is what I do with my clients. Every single day that they're working with me, I have them practice. What do you notice? Did you notice that a craving came up? Did you notice you felt anxious? Did you notice that you were clenching your jaw? Um, so it takes practice. That is, we are very disconnected, like you say, and I think has a lot of it to do with just our modern society and just how we all are today. But if we can practice noticing those moments, things that we have to do in order to get to that place of notice, we want to do things that are grounding or centering. So one of the things we also learned in her training is grounding, centering, and orienting, and how just how valuable that is when we feel more grounded. Like you said, you've had this, you've noticed that in the past, you've been in your head a lot. So that's true. Like when we feel, anxious, we're in our head. But if we feel grounded, so grounding, if we put, whether it's going outside and putting our feet in the grass, or if you're just, sitting at home at your computer desk and your feet, you just notice where your feet are and you feel grounded, then that is getting you into the present moment and it's making your nervous system feel safe. And then you can start to notice that maybe you're clenching your jaw. I've lots of times I've done grounding exercises with people, and then so they're sitting there, their eyes are closed, they're paying attention to their feet, whether their feet are in shoes or on carpet or whatever it is, just paying attention to that. Once they start to pay attention to that, they drop into their body. I've had people say, "Oh my gosh, I was clenching my jaw." I know that I clench my jaw at night because, my dentist has told me, and now I have, a mouth guard and things like that. But I just thought I was clenching my jaw at night. I had no idea I was clenching my jaw during the day too.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, like how powerful is that we all are doing those little things all day long, and we're not even realizing it. So really, it's like getting the body regulated, getting grounded, and then practice day after day. It's a skill like anything else.
Yeah, I love that. Just the very simple practice of grounding. So you also mentioned getting centered or oriented. Is that kind of is it like a step 1, 2, 3, or is that sort of part of how to describe grounding?
So those are three different activities that just all go together so nicely. They're like a perfect little trio. The centering is basically I walk them through a nice thing where, like, some of the verbiage in their centering meditation is, if you feel scattered, we've got all these pieces. Like, if we feel scattered, you visualize, like, literally bringing all those scattered pieces back into you. And then your center point, it can feel different for everyone, and it can feel different day by day. So if your eyes are closed and you're visualizing that you're gathering all these pieces back, your center point right now could feel like it's in your chest. Tomorrow or an hour from now, it could feel like it's in your stomach. and there's no right or wrong answer, but you just kind of intuitively feel like, okay, where is my center right now? And I need to bring all these scattered pieces back. And it just helps with nervous system regulation. And then orienting is like literally just orienting, knowing where you self are in relation to the rest, to the room you're in and to the objects around the room you're in. There's a nice technique where there's some eye gazing involved, and a nice kind of relaxing stare. So I'll have my clients focus on an object in the room, and they're going to just gaze at it, and they're going to let their eyes and their body rest, and just spending a couple of, a minute or so, or a few seconds focusing on, the lamp in front of them or whatever it is, can really help to regulate the body. And then when your eyes are, and then I have them close their eyes, and then I'll have them say, okay, like, where's the closest wall to you? It could be in front of you, behind you, to the left, to the right. Just knowing, again, knowing where you are in relation to the room that you're in and all the objects around you. It gets you into the present moment. So all three of them, the theme there is getting into the present moment, which can get you into your body, which can help you with your nervous system and your emotional regulation.
Yeah, that's so good. I've heard it said, be where your feet are.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's another way of thinking, okay, noticing where I am in relation to other things. And you're right, Kristin, it's so powerful when we notice that our body is responding to this either thoughts or external stimuli with, maybe some fear or some dysregulation. So we've talked about dysregulation. How do we know when we're regulated? What are those clues? What's happening in the body then?
Oh, so there's a really cool model of the brain. It's called Flipping Your Lid, by Dr. Dan Siegel. I really like it. So, if you can't see me on camera right now, but I have for the audience listening, I am holding up my fist, and I'm going to point to the bottom of my wrist, and then my thumb is over my palm, and then my fingers are flapped over. So when our lid is closed, that means that we've got our brainstem. This is our animal brain, the limbic brain. Our amygdala is the thumb, and then our fingers are our prefrontal cortex, our logical brain. So when everything is connected, that means that both parts of our brain, our animal brain, which is our emotional brain, and our logical brain, are talking. And when they're talking, then we can be, operating from both of our logical and emotional brain, and it's all, together and connected. So a lot of the times, if we get dysregulated, let's say you're driving and somebody cuts you off, then your lid, if you get dysregulated, your lid will flip. So basically, what I'm doing right now, I'm flipping my fingers up. So our logical part of our brain goes offline. So now the animal brain is running the show, and that's when we might, start honking or screaming, or doing whatever kind of reactive behavior to the situation of being cut off in traffic. It's just, so our animal brain is taken over. So, but if you're sitting there and that happens, let's say going forward, if you think, okay, I just got cut off, I feel a little dysregulated right now. My fingers are up in the air. My lid is flipped. So can I just breathe right now? Can I just, a couple breaths in, couple of breaths out? Can I do a VU breath? Can I, maybe do some havening, which is another nice thing where you can just rub your arms and hands and rub your above your eyebrows real quick. Do something for the body. So bring that, do something for the body to bring that regulation again. And then this way your prefrontal cortex, the logical thinking part of your brain, can come back online. Because when we're dysregulated, it's our animal brain is running the show, and our animal brain does not understand language. So telling someone to calm down is usually not effective at all. And it's usually sometimes makes things worse, because we're not talking, that's a conversation for a logical part of our brain. But if the logical part of the brain has left the building and we're just trying to talk to the animal brain, you can't have a logical conversation with an elephant, but you can go up to an elephant and maybe pet it and soothe it and talk nice and do those kinds of things, because the elephant, it just wants to feel good and soothed. And you can't convince an elephant to feel better just by talking at it. You have to do something for it, get it into its body, because it only understands sensation.
Yeah. Oh, I like that, flipping your lid. That's a great visual to really think about how we can get dysregulated and then what the downward effects of that are, and really how powerful it is to be noticing what will work in the moment if we're in that animal brain or if we're in that more logical brain. And again, giving the body the credit it deserves for giving us these sensations, helping tip us off when things are getting out of our control, I guess is a way to say it, when we're going to get more dysregulated. So I love that. And so I would assume that if we are regulated, we're feeling a little bit more calm, we're feeling more present, our body is feeling more relaxed. I think I
Exactly.
talk to my clients a lot about the safety, that we're wired for, negativity. We're looking around, we're scanning our environment. And it's very powerful to recognize that most of those threats are not really as threatening to our physical being as they seem, or we can come do that grounding and centering and orienting and then get out of that state. Whereas, it feels very physically threatening, but in today's modern society, the things that set us off are often not physically threatening. But we get mad at somebody on social media, or,
Right.
you know, the, uh, the remote control is missing. It's silly things like that can really set us off. So that's really great. I love all those powerful options for us as we start to move through this. So yeah, I think that the work around regulating our nervous system is really powerful. And I know I also use the book Burnout for some of my clients, where they talk about the different ways to complete the stress cycle. And
Okay.
I added a few of those things. I think they have 6 things that really help regulate that nervous system, knowing that we just kind of are inundated all throughout the day with little things that can start to elevate our cortisol or our adrenaline, and we don't stop and shake it off or dance it out or exercise. And then we get to the end of the day and we have this transition period like we talked about, and it feels like too much. We've already been dysregulated all day, and now we're trying to relax, and we haven't really, used any of the tools throughout the day. And so the alcohol feels like that really quick switch and that easy button. And so, this isn't something clients just do with their cravings, right? They do it, I would assume, throughout the day. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. So I want them to practice noticing, yeah, not just cravings. I want them to practice noticing how their energy is, how their mood is. Because there's different things. So I remember, like, if I felt when I was first doing this program as a client, if I felt fatigued, for example, um, I would think, okay, how can I boost my energy? I would maybe hop on my Peloton bike and just move my body for 20 minutes. And then I would kind of wake up, even more effective than drinking a glass of coffee or something. Cravings is one, but just noticing, well, what are those triggers? If cooking maybe you cook every day after you come home from work, but if you've associated now drinking every time you cook, I don't I don't really want you to be doing that. I want you to change that pattern so that maybe you're meal prepping, and maybe until we get over this hump, that you're meal prepping on on Sundays or something like that. And then this way after work, you can just go home, reheat your dinner. You don't have to cook. So yeah, noticing. So we have to notice what is creating those triggers, so that we can, change those patterns, get away from those triggers while we're regulating, learning how to regulate our nervous system again and practicing that day by day. And yeah, so that's really helpful. And it all goes back to noticing.
Yeah, yeah. It does. And that awareness is really one of the most powerful tools that we have. We have to start paying attention. So I want to switch gears a little bit because you and I talked, and I know you have a charity and a foundation that you are really passionate about. And I assume it's something that you found in your own recovery journey. But, one of the parts of this untangling the alcohol-free journey is kind of paying attention to our loved ones and what they might be going through. And, when before some of the new thought leaders around alcohol freedom came along, like Annie Grace and Jolene Park and Holly Whitaker, we sort of had the 12-step model. And in the 12-step model, we also had the companion for family called Al-Anon. They're still widely available. You can find Al-Anon meetings everywhere, just like you can find AA meetings. And I've heard good things about Al-Anon. I haven't personally experienced it. But you and I were talking that this Foundation for Change, CMC, also has a way to support the family, but it's a little bit different than Al-Anon. So I would love for you to just sort of share this resource for people who maybe have a loved one in their life who are, and they as an individual are struggling, the best way to support them.
Yes, yes. I love that we're getting to talk about this. So, CMC Foundation for Change, they are a nonprofit and they are dedicated to providing evidence based tools for change to everyone who cares about a person struggling with substance use. And then they've taken the best that science has to offer and they've created this practical, compassionate, and accessible approach for helping called the invitation to change.
Mm.
And what I love about Invitation to Change is that it's so what makes it different from Al-Anon is that it's actually you go to learn skills. That is the most important takeaway from Invitation to Change. Every time you go to an Invitation to Change meeting, you're going to learn a new skill. But you also do get the benefit of being in a room, whether it's a Zoom room or an in-person room, of being in a room with other people who are going through what you're going through. So you are getting that support. So it's a learning, you're learning skills in a supportive environment. So it uses motivational interviewing, concepts from craft, and also concepts from ACT. So it took those three concepts and drew out the best, and they combined it all into the Invitation to Change. And yeah, it's so incredible. And for me, one of the things that I love about Invitation to Change too, and why it's so important for me, I kind of feel like, this is something that my husband would have benefited from back when I was struggling. And, and if you think about it, a lot of people have about 50% of people in the United States have someone in their life, a loved one, a family member, a friend who's struggling with substances. So this permeates, all of our entire society. And just knowing that having the family members, if they have skills and if they can, when they have skills, when they can learn about, how to talk to their family member, when they learn a little bit about how addiction works and the concept around ambivalence, then they can start to take things less personally. They can start to take care of themselves. Because, like, let's say your family member is struggling with some kind of substance. Well, if it stresses you out to the point where now you're drinking to cope with it, like, that's not helping anybody. It's not helping your loved one. It's not helping you. So, so self-awareness is in there, and things like that. And their whole model is science and kindness,
Mm.
because they use psychological studies, real studies, to come up with their program. And it's wildly different than the traditional way of thinking, where the traditional, like, the addiction industry as a whole, they really push this narrative of tough love and a rock bottom approach. And that is the evidence is out, and that is a terrible way to try to help people get better. So it's, we want to bring families together. We want to foster communication instead of fostering, defensiveness. If your loved one who's struggling with substances, if they feel like you're attacking them or you're poking on them, making them feel worse, they're just going to shut down. They're not going to come to you for help. We're social beings. We need other people. We're just hardwired to have other people. And, and psychological studies have shown that social connection plays such a vital role in a person's change process, and the tone and the quality of those interactions within our close relationships have a significant impact on people's outcomes.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I'm so happy to hear you share all that because I don't know if you know, Kristen, but many of my listeners know that I have someone in a close family member who still struggles with alcohol use disorder. And, exactly what you said is that there's been well meaning people in my life and our family's life who have said, it's time for tough love and, you know, um, or an intervention. And, this is such a personal journey, but also, having the right level of support. So I think what you said that I made some notes around is this idea that you're learning skills, because one of the most difficult parts of this journey, to walk this journey alongside someone you love, is to feel helpless.
Mm.
And you're talking about actually this allows for someone to take action, even if it's just for their own benefit, to learn and understand and develop coping skills, communication skills. And what a beautiful approach to a very complex and challenging situation. And so tell us, if someone is in this situation with their loved one, what you mentioned Zoom and in person. Is this something that's available widely, or how do people take advantage of something like the Invitation to Change family support system?
Oh, yes. So right on their website, they have a group directory. And there are several opportunities to find either a virtual group or an in-person group, and they're all listed right on their website, which is wonderful. And I did go through the facilitator training myself. I haven't started my own group yet, but I attend now that I'm one of the group leaders because I went through the training. There are 2 meetings a month with all the other group leaders, and I go to those religiously because I just love being in a room with other helpers like myself. Some people are just, mothers. Like they have no training in, therapy or coaching or anything like that. Like they literally watch their own child suffer through, substance use, and they found Invitation to Change, and it changed their life. So they went through the training. So it's what that's another really cool thing about their program and the training is that you can be a lay person. You don't have to have a degree in addiction therapy or anything like that. And yeah, so there's I love being part of the group because I feel like I whip out my book all the time. Look, I have post-it notes everywhere. I just use the concept so often. I use it even with my own clients because, and one of the things that they talk about too is, this behavior doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Mhm.
Right? So there's a bigger picture going on. And, is there things in your experience, your journey, your relationships, what there are contributing factors to the substance abuse. And a lot of my own clients have family members that are actively drinking. And so sometimes it's hard to understand that when, like, oh, my mother's coming to visit and she's actually the one who was the first person, she really said something about my drinking. And that's actually why I'm going down this path now. And it's like, but now she's going to come visit soon and she's going to be drinking every night while she's at my house. And I'm like, she's like, that's so confusing. Like, I don't understand. And I grabbed the book and I went right to the page that talks about a concept called ambivalence is normal. And it's like, yeah, your two things that seem opposing can be true at the same time. Whether it's, yes, your mother does want to support you in your journey to becoming alcohol free, and she still wants to drink, or going back to me and when I was struggling with alcohol, I knew, like, once my life really started to go off the rails, I was aware of that my life was falling apart, my health was falling apart, it was affecting my relationships in a negative way, all those things, like all those negative consequences, I was aware they were happening, but yet I couldn't stop drinking because I was still getting something out of drinking, and the negative consequences didn't just erase the positives. So it was a very ambivalent way of being. And that is really helpful, whether you're yourself going down this journey of trying to stop drinking or trying to stop using substances, or you have that loved one. And it helps you to take things less personally. That peace of mind of not taking it so personally can be a huge game changer for your own health and nervous system. And and coping with all of this.
Mm. Yeah, I love that you've taken the facilitator training. I think it sounds like we need more people with this information and new approaches because I remember when I heard that the opposite of addiction is connection. And then I thought,
Yeah.
okay, wait a minute. How does tough love work? You just take away all of the love and connection, and then you expect the person to heal all in a vacuum. And I never understood that concept. And it certainly never rang true for, my own personal family member because it, it was, I could just tell that the being somebody who always was able to say that this is, I love you in spite of your addiction is an important part for me. And I feel like with tough love, they expect you to turn off that part. And so it just never rang true. And so I'm glad that there's new approaches that are honoring, what always felt more intuitive in my situation, certainly. And, it's an ever evolving story. And so, all of us, if you, as you said, 50% of people, love someone who struggles. And it could be in the gray area drinking where it feels like there's no rock bottom. However, there can still be a huge impact. And I noticed, when I stopped drinking, like you said, when it's obvious that something needs to change, it's usually breakdown in relationships. And so one of the most beautiful things in my own journey, and my husband also stopped drinking, is that we just have a much different relationship now. And it's such a gift. And that trickles down to my children and my grandchildren and my mother. And, everyone has this new sense of talk about nervous system regulation, right? When things are off with the primary people in your family, that everybody can, there's something called co-regulation, right? So we can get dysregulated by the other people around us. And what a gift it's been to see that things are just easier and smoother. I remember we went on a family vacation and I was about 4 months before I stopped drinking. And there was just a lot going on. There was 7 of us, and there was illness. There was people. People were crabby. There was people breaking up, and the relationships were falling apart. And we were all in this, together for a week, and we're supposed to be having a great time. And none of that was really happening because there was this underlying piece of the drinking was really creating this dysregulated, and then everybody was they were coming down to our level. And so just understanding all of that dynamic and receiving support and realizing that, this, like you said about ambivalence, this is a normal process, and we can acknowledge that it's normal, but it doesn't have to continue. But going back to what we've been talking about this whole time is awareness is really that first step.
Definitely. Definitely. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been such a lovely conversation. I'm so glad that you're doing this work in the world, both with helping your clients discover nervous system regulation and then as a facilitator and that beautiful invitation to change. I mean, such a powerful package that you offer. So if someone wants to find out more about how to work with you and chase their own sunsets, how can they be in touch, Kristin?
Yeah, so you can head on over to my website, KristinHorstman.com. I have a contact page where you can hop on my calendar and book a 20-minute, what I call a discovery call. It's a free chat. And, we can just talk about, you can tell me what's going on. We can talk about, drinking and the role it's been playing in your life. And we can see if coaching is a good fit for you.
I know you're a learner like I am, and we've had the opportunity to meet several times in person. And I think you and I are probably also going to be in Seattle together in September.
Yes. Yes, I'm so excited about the next Sober in the City in September. I can't
Yeah,
wait.
it's going to be so fun. And Kristin's a member of the Sober Edge Book Club. So if you want to get in touch with Kristin and also find out more about the CMC Foundation for Change, we're going to link all of this in the show notes. And since I just mentioned the Sober Edge Book Club, if you want to join us and hang out with Kristin and Terry and all the lovely ladies, I'm going to link that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Kristin.
Thank you so much, Terry.
I want to thank you for tuning in to the Sober Edge podcast. This is a place for important conversations and a safe place to question everything you thought you knew about drinking. If you're looking for your sober edge, I want to invite you to connect with me at thesobernutritionist.com, where you can grab my free resource, Becoming More, a guide to loving your sober life. And I would be so grateful if you enjoyed this podcast, if you would leave a rating and review, as it will help more people find their sober edge.